Right now on Tech Radio, the Black Friday scam.
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Every week online and on air with RT Radio, we bring you the latest in tech from Ireland and across the world. This is episode 1046, looking back at the 7 biggest tech stories of the week, including some Black Friday nonsense, Macquarie's word of the year, and another expensive election. Plus, with our guest interview, we'll be taking an algorithmic approach to creating ecosystems in social media.
From TechCentral.ie, this is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
My name's Dusty. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. Very unimpressed with Black Friday. How could you possibly be unimpressed with all of these bargains going on with everything?
I'm going to sound a little bit like an old man shaking his fist at the clouds. I'm kind of done. I mean, this is even worse than Valentine's Day. I mean, at least St. Valentine was a person. I mean, Black Friday is an American holiday. It's the first Friday after Thanksgiving. That's all it was there for. It was, designed to get people in the shops. It is their equivalent of the first day of the January sales, only it happens to be in November. Now, we looked at this a couple of years ago. Our deals on Black Friday, actually really good deals. And I can't remember who did the study, but it was basically found that prices corrected during the year. And it was a case of, okay, you sell all your old inventory in January. That's fine. We'll assume you got rid of what you want to get rid of. The new stuff comes in. It's priced a certain way. During the course of the year, that price might actually go up. And then come November, in order to recoup any, potential losses, they come up with these steep discounts to mark Black Friday and the start of the Christmas season, where you will have an increased volume of sales. So by the time next January comes around, inventory levels will actually be pretty low. I don't know, Dusty, have you seen anything with a Black Friday thing on it that for one day only is a really good bargain?
I think Black Friday is a scam because I have not seen any real bargains. I've seen Amazon is my poison, as you well know, and I've seen a couple of little things on there, but they're like 10, 20 quid and they're kind of going 20% off. I'm saving €2. Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're buying something large, like something you're not going to buy every year, like a fridge or something like that, I think there are pretty good discounts to be had there. But again, if you're to go 10% off a fridge that you'll be dropping probably more than $1,000 on if you're getting one of these big American fridges.
On the tech side of things, I don't see things dropping much more than you would see them dropping during other sales throughout the year.
Sure.
I haven't seen any bargains which have excited me, and I got scammed the other day, which actually turned out in my favor.
Okay, right. You gotta elaborate on this.
I'm testing out a software service, okay, and they said try it for a month, half price, and I went, okay, whatever. So I put in the code and whatever, and I'm trying it out for the month, and I'm going, yeah, it's okay. And then I got an email from someone going, Black Friday, 33% off. And I went, well, okay, well, if it's 33% off, then maybe I'll sign up for the year. This is the whole thing. Sign up for the year and get a third off. And I went, that sounds quite good. So I went to, and then I read the small print because I'm just one of these nerdy people who reads the small print, right? And it says, does not apply to people who have existing accounts, new customers only, or people with free accounts or something, whatever. Something like that. I was going, I wonder if it'll work or whatever. Because I wanted that 33% discount. So I went in and I clicked and I went, okay, go for the annual. And I was waiting for the bit where I would put in the promo code to see if it would give me the discount. And it charged me. It just went, congratulations, you're in for a year. And I went, what? How? No amount, no question, no confirmation, no nothing, just bam, charged. And I went in and I checked out, I said, where's my account? Looked at the invoices. There was an invoice that had been generated 5 seconds beforehand. My credit card had been charged. But it turns out this is a service that's worth about 500 quid a year, right? And I was looking at the invoice going, how come they only charge me 250? Turns out the 50% discounts that I had for the 1 month trial was also applied to the year. So I did even better than their Black Friday sale of a third off for the year. It's like, yes.
Okay.
There's a win.
It's a win.
Completely by accident.
There you go. Black Friday redeems itself.
The Black Friday, in short, I would say for me is that in the past, yes, it's been brilliant. This year, no. Really interesting documentary you should watch on Netflix, and it's all about how brands force us to buy things. And it kind of ties in with Black Friday, but it's all about what they do in order to get you to buy things. And it's what we've been saying about Apple for years and other brands like that, where it's kind of like they'll make something and then they deliberately make sure that it won't work after 3, 4, 5 years, or it's not attractive to use after 3, 4, 5 years. Then you have to upgrade to the new model. And there's two problems with that. Number one is there's nothing really wrong with the old model. And number two is what happens to the old model? You know?
Well,
you were into e-waste. That's another thing you want to talk about.
That ties into another one of our stories today. Yeah. Which is the body behind the e-waste recycling initiatives in Ireland, have released a report. And they found in November and December, I think is last year, of course, only 1 in 3 devices sold were sent back for recycling. And this is a little bit niche for us, but anyway, over 11 million small electronic items from personal grooming to tech were bought here last year. 4.4 million of them across Black Friday and Christmas.
Wow.
However, this is according to them, if less than a third, it's about 30% of these goods return to the circular economy through the recycling, then they can no longer be repaired or reused. And apparently, consoles, battery operated action figures are toys in general seem to be the worst offenders. Otherwise, there's gold in then their unused devices. And it's something that we've said quite a bit over the past year. So really could do better when it comes to recycling. It can be done.
That's an astonishing fact that there's 11 million, did you say, devices sold across a year, and 4 million of that is across the Christmas period, November, December. Wow.
Yeah, it's that funnel.
And only 1 in 3 are recycled.
Yeah, which, in fairness, if you buy something these days...
in fairness, what? How can that be in any way in fairness?
Well, no. I think it's become part of a lot of people's routine now. It's like, look at printers, right? People buy printers fairly often because they're cheap. When you're getting a printer, what's your first, impulse? I'm going to bring back the old one. Straight away. For everyone I know, anyway. That's how they think. I'm getting something. I'm bringing the old one back straight away. It's not even a consideration.
Yeah, I know you're saying that, and that might be in your experience. But what I'm saying is the survey that you said that only 1 in 3 of us are bringing stuff back for recycling for technology stuff. That's a disgrace.
Yeah,
we as Irish people should hang our heads. 1/3 of tech stuff is recycled. And then we get this bull with the plastic bottles, which kind of really annoys me because 70%, the reason why it annoys me, 70% of us were walking out to the back garden and chucking those bottles into the green bin anyway. All right. Mm-hmm. The majority of people are doing it. We need that to be higher. We need that to be up at 80, 90%. So then what they do is they decide then to make things all the more bloody complicated. Now I
you're
have to have
shaking your fist at a crowd.
Yeah, I'm being the angry old man. Maybe we should just do another podcast called Angry Old Men. But you know what I mean? It's kind of like now you've got a separate box or a bag or whatever, plastic bottle, and then you should bring it down to the supermarket, put it into the machine, and then get your thing out. It's like, anyways, right. Shall we all calm down and continue?
Well, let's calm down. Can you pick something that's a little less aggravating?
Yeah, sure. How about the election?
There we go. Okay,
So-
what have we got about the election?
All right. Well, listen, we won't talk about the election here in Ireland this weekend, but just interesting to see with the recent election in America, they've released the amount of money that was spent in advertising by both the Republicans and the Democrat parties. Now, they spent, there was a story here online. And it was about how much the Irish people have spent on the election. Let me just look it up. Sinn Féin has spent like somewhere in the region of €25,000, okay, on Facebook and Instagram advertising. Fine Gael has spent almost 90,000. All right.
Wow.
Fianna Fáil, 75,000 roughly. All right. That's up to the 22nd of November. Those numbers are for. All right. But all well under €100,000, okay? Which I would have thought it would be way higher. In the States, they're spending hundreds of millions.
Of course.
All right. I think the Democrats spent nearly $1 billion. Trump didn't spend as much, 300 million or something like that or whatever. But a third of their budget went on digital advertising.
Full third. Okay.
A full third of their budget went on digital advertising, which I thought was interesting. And then who they chose to advertise with was also interesting. So Kamala, as a female candidate, and with the Democrats, they tended to advertise more on Facebook and Instagram, whereas Trump did an awful lot more on YouTube. I don't think that he had to advertise on X because...
For obvious reasons.
For obvious reasons. He's got his own Truth Social. What I thought was really interesting, and actually in a tech side of things, and maybe this is kind of getting into my podcast world, I think one of the things that helped him get across the line this year was because he did more podcasts. And I had a post up on LinkedIn to say, like, you know, kind of who was it? FDR. He was one of the first presidents in the States to really conquer radio. It was the first time people were able to hear the president speaking. He had these things called fireside chats. That's what he called them. John F. Kennedy. I mean, television was his thing. There's the famous debate in the States between Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy. And because Nixon was just sweating under the lights, he lost the election because of that. Whereas John F. Kennedy just looked younger and more vital and most importantly, not sweating. Then we had the Obamas, of course. I mean, they were just using Twitter and online and stuff like that. And their whole Yes, We Can campaign. And then this time round, kind of, I think, and a lot of people are saying it, that podcasting was, if you want to call it, the star of the election. And the reason I say that is because he did way more podcasts than Kamala did, and he did the Joe Rogan podcast. What interests me about this is that both Kamala and Trump were invited onto the Rogan podcast, which is the biggest podcast in the world. All right. But only Trump did it.
Yeah.
Okay. 3 hours. All right. With a majority male audience, skewing younger. And I bet most of them undecided. Just what has this crazy guy got to say? Bah, bah, bah. And you listen to him for 3 hours. And I think that a lot more people might have come out of that going, well, there's some things in that actually that I might agree with.
I think so, because, and this is at risk of getting into wider cultural stuff in the States, but one of the things that is being talked about in the States is the state of young men, right? There's something called a male loneliness epidemic happening at the moment, where young men basically don't know how to talk to women, don't know how to, engage because, they're fearful that they will be, called out as a groomer or worse. And they also see that women are doing spectacularly well in society when maybe they aren't. And for what reason? Well, we have things called DEI, which is there to promote a better balance of people in the workforce to reflect the balance of people in the country. Whether, it doesn't seem to be particularly popular at the moment, but it's meant that an awful lot of young men felt disenfranchised, angry, kind of alienated, and feeling that, as young men, we are wired a certain way. Who was actually representing that? And hey, all those guys didn't, all those male floating voters, they just identified with Trump more than women identified with Kamala.
So I think that definitely had a role to play with it. But as I say, it's interesting to see with the election, as we have been suffering. I mean, going through for the last 3 weeks here in Ireland, and then you compare it to the States. It's just, I mean, there's no comparison. The amount of money that they spend on social media advertising is just phenomenal. And I thought the podcast actually was interesting to see that Simon Harris, one of the first things he did was to go on the podcast with the two Johnnies. Yeah. Anyways, interesting how times are changing. What else have we got going on in the news today? Now, this is interesting. Normally we have stories about Meta and social media platforms are usually being told what to do by authorities in the States or authorities in the EU or whatever. This time around, this week, Meta are now calling on the EU to do something about the topic of age verification. Tough one.
Do you know why they're asking for solutions on this?
Okay, I would have gone down the sensible route and that they want to be good citizens. But the way you're asking, it sounds like, no. How naive am I? Right. Go on. Why are they asking?
Now, to my cynical mind, the Meta is listed as one of the 6 sort of dominant platforms under the Digital Services Act.
Yes.
It means that everything they do is under massive scrutiny. Yeah. And Facebook have had their fingers burnt many times over the past year or so in terms of fines. I mean, they have coughed up over €1 billion in fines, which goes to us in the main. Thank you very much. This is why I think GDPR is a legitimate line of income for the state, corporate taxes and GDPR fines. So I think this is an example of Facebook going, okay, Europe, you win. Okay, we're going to play by your games. How do you think we should fix this stuff that's a problem? I think throwing it on the regulator, you come up with a solution, we'll implement it. Let's do this. Let's play ball.
I think it's good politics for them to do that. Yeah. The one thing that's interesting about this is that almost everyone agrees that there needs to be rules for under 16s. There was a survey this week. 300 Irish parents were surveyed, and 87% of them said that they would support laws requiring parental approval for things like social media accounts, or for joining app stores, or for what kind of apps you download from the app stores. And I think that's a good idea. I think it's better than the Australian side of things, where they've gone, as always, complete nanny state, where they just ban social media for people under 16.
Yeah, well, that's what they've done in Australia. They're not taking any guff whatsoever.
Yeah. And I don't think that's a good idea, because the whole idea, you need to teach people as they are growing up about the world and how it works and stuff like that. And at least if you have I don't want to call it a kid-friendly version of it, but if you have a walled garden version of it, it's like, imagine if you had an Apple version of Facebook.
Oh God!
Give that one to the under 16-year-olds.
They did try something like that, didn't they? Do you remember when Apple Music came out? They had an associated social network.
Oh, they had something like that. Yeah, I'm sure.
And it imploded. It didn't do well for them at all.
Yeah. But I think absolutely there needs to be, the under 16s have to have a social network, because they have to learn how to interact with other people. All right. And interacting with other people online is a part of modern life. You can't shelter people away from that until they're 16 years of age and then let them loose. That's crazy. So I actually agree with Meta that the EU should, because that's what regulators do, is they sit down and they set the this is the standard, and then people will go with the standard, because if there is no standard, people will just all do different things.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. All right. We did a webinar this week on DORA and NIS2, which is, if you work in enterprise IT, you'll know what these are about. These are digital resilience. Well, one of them is the Digital Operation Resilience Act. The other one is the Second Network Information Security Directive, and it's all about regulation. And it's, we found that it has to be a conversation with regulators. Regulators don't just come in and say, right, we're going to fine you X much. You've got to work with them instead of treating them like, a judge with a banhammer or something like that.
Yeah. All right. Last story for this week then. We have the word of the year, which particularly applies to, I suppose, social media platforms, I was saying.
Well, a certain one we're going to be talking about later.
Indeed. Collins Dictionary. Now, everybody has different words of the year. So Macquarie have theirs. Collins Dictionary, I think, is the most famous example so far this year, where their word of the year was brat. And that was their word because there's a singer, rapper, artist, Charlie XCX, and that was the name of her album. And it's very, kind of female orientated. And Kamala Harris took on the look and feel of that album or whatever. And then Charlie XCX saw it and went, hey, Kamala, you're brat. And then all of a sudden everybody's using the word. So that's why Collins Dictionary used that particular word as the word of the year. This year with Macquarie, their word is something which defines a project which starts off really good and then gets progressively worse, such as Facebook and X and so on and so forth.
And your social network of choice. Yeah.
What is the Macquarie Dictionary word of the year?
Yeah, Macquarie's is an Australian dictionary, so you can expect a little bit of abrasiveness involved. And I'm sure why not?
Brace yourself.
Brace yourself. The
Bad
word
language
of the year.
coming.
The word of the year is enshittification.
It's brilliant.
Something started.
Brilliant.
It was pretty cool. We liked it. Everybody hops on board. Then the people that are running it are like, oh, figs, we need to make money out of this. How do we turn our users' behavior into cash? Okay, let's do that at the expense of our user experience. So if you look at something like X, where you have algorithms manipulating which content gets to the top of your feed, the kind of content it is. Very often you end up surrounded by absolute nonsense that has nothing to do with you or your life position or life interests. And the platform is effectively useless to you. None of the things that brought you to that website or platform are effective anymore. I know my experience on pretty much every social network. Well, bar LinkedIn. LinkedIn is all right, but I don't.
It's getting worse.
It's getting worse. Yeah, there's a lot of humble bragging going on, which is a bit annoying. But we've seen it with every platform. Things start off with good intentions, and as soon as money enters the equation, you lead to control of the users. You lead to a downgrading of the user experience. It stops becoming what brought people to the platform in the first place, and then it becomes a necessary evil. Most people are on Facebook now just to keep up with family. They don't really care about anything else on it. Oh, unless you want to be brainwashed into something really awful. That is the process of enshittification.
I love it. Word of the year. Niall, thanks as always for keeping us up to date with the news.
From TechCentral.ie, this is the award-nominated Tech Radio from TechCentral.ie.
Now, continuing the theme of this weekend's election and politics in general that we've been talking about, I don't know if you've been tried to talk about politics on X lately. There used to be a time where you could do that, where people on there had blue ticks, which meant reliability and integrity. But unfortunately, all of that seems like a lifetime ago. So how did things get so toxic so quickly on X? Dr. Kleber Andrade Oliveira is a computational mathematician based at MTU who researched this phenomenon and looked at how and why extreme voices are having an outsized influence on that platform. He told Niall Kitson more.
Kleber, social media platforms need to work for everybody. It's kind of a given. As time has gone on, however, the needs of the business and the needs of the user have kind of diversified, and now there's a push-pull going on and algorithms are doing the work. So what exactly is happening here, and how much do you think algorithms are governing how we use these platforms?
Yes, that's a very good question, Al. So absolutely, there is a push-pull. There'll always be a push-pull, right? And there has been one thing these platforms emerged and started. And I think the main thing, though, that people need to be debating is that the platform need to be transparent and to be accountable so that we can actually tell, look, there is this situation going on. This much is from the interference of the platform, from the features of the platform. And this much could have happened, let's say, more or less spontaneously if people were just if people could just talk among themselves, things would emerge now, right? So right now, the point here, there has been some regulation and some policies as well, right? But there's also this very particular movement, very specific situation in which you had the platform known as Twitter, which is quite a big platform, influential, that has been taken completely private now, right? And then as soon as the business transforms, the model also changed, policies are also implemented, and we don't know the extent of things now.
I think X is kind of the example du jour in that not too long ago, having a blue tick was a sign that somebody was, important, that their ideas mattered, that they were a source of actual, impartial information. It was somebody that you could use as a resource if you wanted to know something. Then the ownership changed. Elon Musk came in and he had his own vision for what the company was. And part of his strategy for getting the platform to pay for itself was to remove tick marks and made them kind of a subscription service. That came with an awful lot of problems from an algorithmic perspective as well, didn't it? It changed the kind of content that we see.
It did, yeah. This is the system of verification, as you call it. Yeah, it came up in 2012, if I'm not mistaken now, from Twitter. And it was soon, of course, copied by other platforms because this is a way to say, look, this is the legitimate profile of important figure, let's say the president of a country or some institution or journalist, right? And this is the problem now. When the business model changed for then Twitter, now X, they wanted to turn it into a product, right? And the tick now is we can understand it as a form of, as we say, algorithmic boosting, right? So it's like your profile is thing before, it's somehow prioritized, so your reply shows up first. And we can kind of say that you're going to have increased reach, right? Because people don't scroll down until the last reply. No, they usually see the first one and move on to the next thing. So there's a series of implications there, and they weren't really, or at least from the point of view of someone who's outside, it doesn't look like they consulted with other people. Look, can we change the system? Can we do this thing? What's going to happen? Or if we try to do this, we don't have much information. So that's where our study comes from.
So in the work that you've been doing, you went to sort of what was happening around election time. We've had the US election. We've got one of our own coming up as we're speaking this Friday. I think something interesting that happened during the last US election was that we had these echo chambers that were absolutely ferocious in terms of their discourse. I think personally, most people are centrist. One thing about politics in Ireland is that people are either vaguely centre-right or vaguely centre-left. Those are the two parties that do well. And the fringes of both exist. But in general, people keep their discourse civil. This is something that did not happen in the last election in the US. And this is something that you studied, in particular, the effect that people were experiencing. So tell us a little bit about how a small number of influencers ended up creating very again, to use that word, very ferocious, very extreme echo chambers.
Yes. This is an interesting effect now, and it's an important disclaimer for me to give here before I go talking, that what we did was the computer simulation, right? So we had a computational model in place that then, mimics mechanisms you'd see in the platform, these features you'd see in platform. And it was very interesting to see that, what happened is that if I have this sort of prioritization from the verification system, the new verification system, that, a committed minority using this system could actually drive a system that wasn't polarized before to a system that is polarized by then, right? This is very interesting as well because our model sort of treats opinion as a number. So in principle, there's no right or left described in the model explicitly, right? So this means that any issue that people can be in favor or against, and then they can polarize around this issue, right? Then it means that this new verification system being in place could make things happen even quicker than you would expect normally.
So instead of having, voices in the wilderness coalescing around an idea, you would have a fairly well-recognized voice who is paid to maintain their presence, ends up developing a following, with the illusion of it being organic, but maybe it's been promoted by the algorithm to make it look like a much more mainstream idea than perhaps something is.
Yeah, this is something I find as well that it's quite unique with this type of media because, there was a massive change going from, the previous, let's say, information consumption model you had. That was the broadcast, right? So radio, TV, you'd get news from this specific source, and now you get the information from multiple sources. And these multiple sources can come from all directions, right? So something interesting that we see now is that a lot of effects that have a large scale that are collectively happening, they can actually happen through this committed minority, right? So, and this is something that comes developed from some sociological theory that if you have a committed minority, as soon as you hit the threshold of a critical mass of people who are, let's say, trying to propagate a new norm, cultural norm, then when you hit the threshold, the other people kind of fall through, and then you see the thing propagating across the whole system.
Wow, so there is kind of an inflection point that starts with a committed minority, something that we might see in right-wing ecosystems or right-wing media ecosystems that tend to be fairly accurate, fairly widespread and fairly active, where you might have a lot of voices from different outlets saying the same thing. So this is kind of how you would implant the seed of an idea, is it?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
I can indeed, yeah. You've switched microphone, have you?
I think what happened is my phone went off and then I changed. Let me see.
Is it back to the microphone that was before now?
It is, yeah.
Sorry for it. Okay. So, the thing is, I think a lot of people think this information, let's say, rotated and something that is circulation around. They would often think that, I'm using this platform. A lot of the users here are bots like this. But the thing is, sometimes you don't need many people, to trigger this big process going on across the whole system, right? So very often due to network effect, right? So something is propagated over a network of people, or first in a sort, and then to their neighbors, and then to the neighbors of neighbors, and so on. You can see something merging collectively like this, right? So this is yet another reason for concern when we're talking about these platforms that are very often like black box, not transparent at all, right?
So in looking at, again, our own experience that we're having this week, is there a playbook based on the American experience that could be or is being replicated? Or is it just a completely different ecosystem that can't be tapped in the same way?
Yes, I would go a bit out of my depth now to talk about it, right? Because what we did was the specific study on the one feature of the platform. I do have the impression, and you see, I can only say this systematically if I look at the data, right? And another thing that happened with X is that they started to restrict access to data for research. So researchers can no longer collect the data to analyze and tell this is going on like this, is going on like that. But I do think, though, that it'd be very important for people to be aware now of how the platforms act, what their role in this election, and maybe I'd say, okay, this is me gapping out, taking off my scientist hat and my personal guess, is that things are not as polarized as they tend here in Ireland compared to the US. But that doesn't mean that people should not be cautious about this platform.
And that was Dr. Kleber Andrade Oliveira from MTU chatting with Niall Kitson.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
Okay, that's it for our show this week. Do check out some of the other stories that we have online for you, including...
Yeah, we've got Trinity College has just opened a new AI accountability lab. Qualcomm may not be so interested in buying Intel anymore. And we've got 3 new solar farms for Limerick and Galway.
You'll find all of those and more online at techessential.ie. We're back again next Friday with our favourite show of the year. I'm so excited. It's like Christmas. Oh, hang on, that's because it is. Our toy show, when we're looking at all the best tech gifts that are both affordable and if we won the lottery. Great show lined up for you next Friday. Make sure you follow our podcast so that you get that episode automatically, and do share our podcast with a friend as well. Tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Take care.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland, or listen with RTE Radio 1 Extra. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.